Welcome back to another video discussing Need for Speed 2021, guys, and today we are going to be discussing another important part. I think most of these videos are going to be big major parts of the game, and today's video is all about the map and location. So I thought we'd use every single game from this generation so far. Well, I say so far, the next game probably isn't going to be on this generation, but I'm using each and every game that we've gotten from Ghost to talk about this and really compare all the maps and see what we can take into the next game, or take from others, or even just rip some from real life, because a lot of games do that. Like, I mean, Red Dead Redemption 2 is all over it, but it's great. Need for Speed Miami, well, Palm City is Miami. Ventura Bay from 2015 is Los Angeles, the bay of that. Need for Speed Payback is Las Vegas, which was a pretty poor decision, to be honest, because it's all desert. But I mean, in terms of they wanted to push off-road into the game, I guess then you could call it a good decision, but it was just really, Payback was a boring map, minus the UFO. But whatever, we are here right now, as you can tell, on Need for Speed Heat, at the abandoned mall. Now, I've been thinking about this since Need for Speed Heat released, really, and that is going inside certain locations. If you guys remember, in Need for Speed Most Wanted, I'm pretty sure there was the university or the courthouse or whatever it was. You know, that location that has the house in the background just as you're about to face Blacklist number 15 Sonny? You can go through that. You know, I've gone through that many times, escaping from police, and I felt like they could have done that here. Ghost could have done that here with the mall. Like, can you imagine being able to go inside the mall? Like, it could have had a similar environment to, say, the underground parking garage of Payback, which is one of my favorite locations of that game, because, I mean, that's just sick. Everybody loves an underground parking garage, you know? And I wish he had had that, or at least had a little parking garage inside the mall. Like, can you imagine going inside this abandoned mall, drifting around with your friends, like, you know, just, and having, like, little obstacles, like shopping trolleys or whatever, you know? Just use your imagination. I've used mine, of course. Being able to go inside the mall and similar locations would have been pretty damn cool. There's also other locations in other games that you can really think of as well. Like, Payback could have had a bigger airfield, or better yet, we could have been able to go in the airport in Fortune Valley. As you guys know, there is actually an airport, and planes fly over Fortune Valley as you play, and all the planes come from the airport. It would have been really cool to actually go onto that airport, because if you guys remember, Need for Speed Most Wanted 2012 had both of these things. Most Wanted 2012 had the airfield and it had the airport. Granted, you had to purchase DLC for the airport, but if you I think if you got the complete edition of Most Wanted 2012, then, you know, and I think if they ever remaster that game, it will prove my point. Like, those will be on the map as standard, and that's pretty much what you know, this game should add, like certain locations like the airport and stuff. But also, if you're going to do, I think they should definitely do map expansions, don't get me wrong, but unless they're a completely different location, like, say, for, like, Forza's new locations and stuff, that can cost money. But if it's an actual add-on to the map, that cannot be paid for. Because if you guys remember Need for Speed Most Wanted 2012, you couldn't go into the airport because it was blocked off. I don't know. I think Need for Speed Underground had those little arrow things that stopped you from going out of bounds and stuff. I think they kept that all the way up until, like, Carbon. I think they even went up to Undercover with that. But they had something like that. I think, actually, Hot Pursuit 2010 has it. Don't mind me. But, yeah, it had that sort of thing in Most Wanted 2012 to stop you from going into the airport without purchasing the DLC. So that cannot be a thing. Like, it has to be a completely different loading, a completely different map entirely. Like, it cannot be an actual add-on to the map. It can't be an expansion to the current main map, because a lot of people are going to be angry if there's microtransactions such as that. I mean, granted, if the things we are buying are actually of any worth, then sure. Like, as much as I love the Black Market DLC, the McLaren F1 being, what was it, $4.99? I think that was a bit much, especially judging by what we got. It was only like 3 hours long. Sure, it would have lasted longer had I not done all the Black Market DLC in one live stream, but that's the thing. I was expecting more with Need for Speed Heat. Everybody was expecting more, pretty much. And the fact that Need for Speed Heat didn't get much is why I think Criterion should do the expansions, if it's to do with the map or anything, for free. But that's for another video, of course. At least I think half of them should be free. But whatever, I'll just be drifting into the DLC and expansions video, which I do not plan to do for a while yet. Maybe I'll do it next week. Maybe that'll be next week's video. But in terms of a map location, Need for Speed Heat has probably my favorite in terms of like choosing the location. It wouldn't be my favorite map, but it's up there. I think in terms of map diversity, etc., Need for Speed Heat might just be my favorite, like just behind Need for Speed Carbon. Because the thing with Carbon, it had like the Vegas type area. Do you guys remember Silverton? You know, the stack deck area, Darius's territory. It had these really futuristic type buildings. It was Las Vegas, but it looked like it was 30 years onwards from where it was. Like, it had these really cool futuristic looking buildings. Like, you don't believe me? Just look at the race against Darius in that area. You'll see a lot of, especially at the beginning, at the starting line, you can see some really futuristic buildings in the background. I feel like that would be pretty darn cool. And I feel like in terms of the map, they should also go out of realism, I think, a little bit, because this, end of the day, this is an arcade racer. Like, it shouldn't be too arcadey to the point you're just sliding around at 200 miles an hour. Like, if you're sliding around at 100 miles an hour like it is now, sure, that's fine. I mean, I don't have a problem with brake to drift, quite frankly. At least as it is now, with the clutch kick to drift, I like it even more. But honestly, either way, I don't mind it too much as long as it works and as long as we have the choice for a grip handling model. I know a lot of people hate brake to drift, but honestly, I don't really have an issue with it. To be fair, I actually really prefer the Ghost era handling models over, well, minus 2015. But actually, 2015 is perfectly fine if you do not touch the handling tuning. I mean, if you can tweak it here and there. And speaking of 2015, here's the gameplay. But yeah, if you don't touch the handling tuning too much, you're going to be completely fine with 2015. I mean, but that might just be me, because I played Need for Speed 2015. Me and TJ both played Need for Speed 2015 so much back before Heat, to the point that we basically were just sick at it. We were so good at Need for Speed 2015 to the point that we pretty much dominated speed lists every time we went up in it, because we were just so good. That's not even a flex. Like, we'd played the game so much, we'd pretty much become experts at it. But even now, as you'll see by the gameplay, it's still getting used to the handling model of 2015 again. It's still perfectly fine. Like, it's not bad, it's not perfect. I keep saying perfectly fine. It's absolutely fine. 2015's handling model isn't that bad if you don't touch it too much. If you tweak it too much, you've got issues. But you got the physics model that is broken. But in terms of the handling, I'm fine with it. Payback, that was a bit off for me. I couldn't get used to Payback, but Heat was perfectly fine. So you can just keep it that way, to be honest. That's completely fine. But back to my point, Need for Speed, end of the day, is an arcade racer, and I feel like they can take these types of risks. Back in before the January update for Need for Speed Heat, I was planning on making a video about the little spot near the pier in Need for Speed Heat. You know, where the sign says Aquatica. Now, I know Aquatica wasn't an underwater city in, was it Hot Pursuit 2? I think it was. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think Aquatica was Hot Pursuit 2. Either that was, or it was Hot Pursuit 1, or it might even be neither of them. I'm pretty sure it was Hot Pursuit 2, though. But Aquatica, when you hear the name, sounds like an underwater city. Now, of course, driving in water is a bit out there, but a dome like over the spot. I don't know, like you can imagine it. Like there will be roads and stuff, and the pier of Palm City would kind of lead into it. You drive down there, you drive past the Aquatica sign, and you go right down into it. And then you go into this massive dome where you can see, like, I don't know, sharks, fishes, whatever, swimming over. That's not a big deal unless you look up there. But, like, it'll be in a massive dome. Like, you know, instead of the skybox, it would be the glass dome or whatever with the water around it, whatever. I feel like they could push that, and, like, if they do it correctly, it could work. It really could work. I personally would love a city that looked like that. Like, they could have the really futuristic looking buildings as well. Hell, you can even call it Atlantis. I don't give a crap. Like, an underwater city, something like that. And I know some people are going to be like, ugh, why are you talking about underwater cities and Need for Speed? Like, this ain't a simulation game. And I think people are... The identity crisis is a big thing here. And I know some may argue my suggestion of an underwater city, even though it would only kind of be replacing the skybox, and certain materials, trees and stuff. Like, trees wouldn't be down there unless, I mean, they found a reason, like artificial palm trees or whatever. That would be pretty cool. I don't know, but like, I know people could argue that I'll kind of be making the identity crisis worse, but keep pushing it out of the whole arcade racer sense. Keep trying to push a grip handling model into it. You're kind of going to be pushing Need for Speed in a direction that a lot of other people don't want it to go, and that is too simulated. Like, I don't want Need for Speed to be simulation. I think games like Gran Turismo, Drive Club, etc. should stay in their lane, whereas Need for Speed should stay in the arcade racer lane, but not as arcade as, say, Burnout, you know? But I feel like if they do little map expansions, like, say, an underwater city, where it only really replaces the skybox, everything else is the same as any other map, essentially, just different textures and stuff. I feel like if they do that correctly, that could prove to be really good. Because, I mean, look at Forza. You cannot say that, oh, Need for Speed shouldn't do this, because Forza is also an arcade racer, the same as Need for Speed, and Forza does these Lego expansions, and every damn time I see, like, what was the other one? Hot Wheels, that was it, for Forza Horizon 3, like, every time I see that type of stuff, I'm like, whoa, that's pretty darn cool. And I really dislike Forza. I do not like Forza in the slightest. I think it's boring. I think the handling model is horrible. But in terms of expansions, Forza's whooping everybody else's ass, in my opinion, with creativity. Like, because look at Need for Speed. I mean, you can't tell me my idea is so bad compared to what we've had in Need for Speed. We've had one good expansion in the last decade, and that was the Legends DLC for 2015 with Eddie's Challenge. I mean, you could argue, I mean, Most Wanted in 2012, you can't even say that, because it was just car packs. Car packs should be a thing as well, but that's for another video. But in terms of actual expansions, actual, like, content, we haven't had a good DLC since forever. Like, it's been over a decade at that. So, I don't think we've ever had a better one than Eddie's Challenge, and that's saying something, because he only added like 15 racers and a few new cars. Oh, and over 100 car parts, and that's another thing they should have. Again, that's for another video, but yeah, I have a lot to talk about when it comes to Need for Speed 2021. When it comes to the actual daytime versus nighttime thing, I think I'll make that its own video as well, like a shorter video branching off of this one. But I'm in that group of people that think nighttime is a lot better and suits Need for Speed a lot better. Like, if they got rid of daytime completely, I mean, I'm not sure whether I'd miss it or not. Daytime has got to look better than it did in Heat. Don't get me wrong, the sunshine and everything looks incredible when it's out, but when it's overcast, the game looks abysmal. It does. Like, I'm not even talking in a graphic sense. It's just, it's miserable. And I know like Miami can have that weather sometimes, but when you have the soundtrack as happy as it can be, songs like, oh, what was it? Fading, Riding on the Wall, etc. Like when you have songs like that, like, why is it raining? Why is it overcast? You know, why is it all grey? You know, and then you go into night, and excuse the pun, it's night and day difference, because you see all the reflections. I mean, sure, you can see the reflections in the day when it rains, but it just looks abysmal. I barely spend any time in the day personally, other than when I do videos on Heat. In the night, the game looks so much better. And Project Unite shows, like, I'm really sad that I'll never be able to play Project Unite because I don't own a PC. But I see all these gameplay videos of how the map looks in Project Unite, and Heat especially looks absolutely incredible. And in terms of 2015, the film grain, I mean, I get what they were trying to accomplish with that, more of a vibe. I do not want, I think they had it in Heat as well. In the next game, I do not want that. I'll be in Heat, it wasn't as much film grain as 2015 was, but I do not want film grain at all. I do not want film grain in the next game, because I think it does a lot more harm than good. Sure, it improves the vibe a little bit, but it also hurts the graphics. And to be fair, a lot of casual gamers, they're not going to care about an atmosphere. They're going to care about how a game looks. So film grain, you don't want that. 2015 looks so much better. Well, not so much better, but you can see the difference between 2015 with film grain and off film grain, even without Project Unite. All you got to do is activate Snapshot Pro Mode, and bam. The moment you activate Snapshot Pro Mode, 2015 looks 10 times better. It's absolutely crazy how much better it looks. Now, in terms of the location, I think we've kind of passed you a location outside of America, don't you think? Like, it's to the point that we're kind of repeating locations now. If you didn't know already, we've already had a game set in Miami. Of course, not in a city type modded Miami like Need for Speed Heat was. It was more of a rural, mostly motorway type thing with Need for Speed Undercover. Either way, they're both Miami, and like, as much as I love Miami and I loved it in Heat, I don't want that to begin a trend, because Miami's just one of them one-off locations that look amazing however you do it. But what if you do a location like LA again? Like, I don't think it's going to look as good. Like, I mean, if it's just going to look the same, have the same type of areas as 2015, it's not really going to feel like a new game. I think, and I know people are going to hate me for saying this, Tokyo has got to be the next location, because if it isn't, like, we're gonna have a few issues, I think, because I doubt they'll be able to. I can't think of any other location that they haven't really made a fictional city on before, and it doesn't even have to be completely based on Tokyo. They can do multiple locations. Like, I'm saying the city area, maybe the mountain areas too. It's got to be Tokyo. Like, can you imagine that? Like, Tokyo is such a big deal in terms of illegal street racing. The fact that no Need for Speed game has been set in Tokyo yet is mind-boggling. It's absolutely mind-boggling how they have not done that yet. In terms of the best map, I think that I'll have to go to, like, in terms of the best map to take inspiration from, I'd say, like, outside of the city, Carbon. I think maybe you could have like multiple city areas. Carbon had multiple city areas. Well, it had two. It had Silverton and TFK thing, Fortuna. That's it. It had Fortuna as well. And then you also had like the more rural area, like not completely urban. Like it had a, well, not exactly a full city. It was like smaller in the Bushido area. I forgot what it was called. It was the middle part. And then you have the industrial area. Every game has an industrial area. I ain't really going to tell you different this time. Although I think it's about time we don't have an industrial area, but whatever. I mean, I don't mind either way. As long as the cities look incredible, and you don't waste them, because Need for Speed Payback, if you guys remember, had a pretty darn good city, but they didn't use it. They just did not use the cities in Need for Speed, the city in Payback at all. There is one street race, like one proper street race, and it's hidden because it's not a race. It's not for the race spec. It's for the drag spec. And I'll make a video on it at some point, probably, or maybe I'll feature it in the part that I'm talking about it. But that's abysmal. Like, I know it's not Payback, that's the recent game anymore, but still, like, they've done it before. They could do it again. So if you're going to have a city in the game, you've got to use it to the best of your ability. And even in Heat, they didn't use it to the best of their ability, because there's barely any high-end races in the city. There is one that comes to mind, and that's Discovery, but that leads all the way around the map, you know? So the city areas, you need to have higher level races in the city. But to be fair, the city in Palm City wasn't exactly the biggest thing in the world. It was big enough, but I think it should cover a bigger part of the map, and should definitely have higher level races for sure. Canyons, we need canyons as well. We had those little mountain drift runs in 2015, and they returned in Heat. Not as much as 2015, I don't think so, but they were in Heat. Those are going to return, like, surely. If they don't put those mountain areas in the game, I've got no idea what to say to you. Now, in terms of the gameplay you see right now, Rivals, the snow area, they should definitely add snow to the game, for sure. I think it should definitely become part of the dynamic part, or maybe make it like Rivals and have a complete separate district. As you probably saw from the gameplay, you go through a tunnel which transitions the desert area into the snow area. They can do that again, honestly. The snow area in Rivals is probably one of my favorite areas in the entire franchise. Like, Rivals looks beautiful, but having a snow area in a racing game is amazing, and I think they could kind of pull it off, because like I said, it doesn't have to be completely based on Tokyo. How about the higher you go up the mountain, the colder it gets? Like, usually in real life, no, not even usually, most of the time in real life, the higher you go, the colder it is. Like, that's just common sense at this point. So I think the higher you go up the mountain or the canyon or whatever, the more snowy it gets. And I'll make a video on Canyon Jewels at some point from Carbon. I think they should bring that back. Like, the simple fact that that was only in the franchise for one game is shocking, honestly, because it's one of the most memorable parts of the entire damn franchise. So Canyon Jewels, they need to return, and I think I will definitely make a video with TJ about that at some point. But in terms of other places, I can't really say anything other than Tokyo, I guess. But I can think of various places they can add. I remember Need for Speed Underground having a pretty cool Chinatown area, I can't lie. And that area where the McDonald's advertisement is pretty darn cool as well. And the gameplay you see in Rivals right now, there's this massive unfinished bridge. Most Wanted 05 had one of these as well, but Rivals went big on this one. Like, look at these types of jumps. And that's another thing. I think this can kind of be included in its own video, but it kind of can be included in this one. Jumps. I know people hate jumps. I know people hate the billboards that have been added to Need for Speed. Personally, I think they're here to stay. And personally, I prefer them in the game. I'm not even gonna lie. If out of everything Criterion took from Burnout 10 years ago, the billboards and the jumps is probably the best idea ever. Like, in Heat, Ghost did this so well in Heat in terms of the unlockables. I know there were jumps and stuff in Payback, but there was like nothing to unlock from it. There was literally nothing to unlock, even when you collected all the poker chips. But in terms of Need for Speed Heat, all the jumps I loved, especially the massive ones. There's this one that there's the big bridge that curves around, or you can go left and you go over this massive jump that jumps so far. It's honestly insane, and it looks incredible, especially when it's raining, and it's a sick way to lose the police as well. That was insane. That was incredible in my mind. I thought that was the most insane thing ever. And they better stay in. You know, they better add more of them. Like, not too much, because I think in terms of too much, that would be Most Wanted 2012. I think the level that they had it in Heat, maybe kick that up a notch just a tad, but not too much. And the same with the billboards, really. I did like the billboard idea in Heat as well. Like, it wasn't just, oh, do this so your profile picture will be on it, just like in Most Wanted 2012. Like, that's cool and all, but Heat made a bit of storyline sense, just a little bit. Like, it didn't affect the story, but it made sense of who you were. The illegal street racer, you versus Lieutenant Mercer, and crashing through billboards with his face on it was pretty darn cool, I can't even lie. But in terms of the rewards for that stuff, those need to be improved. I'm not saying the cars that were unlocked were bad, it's the customization ratings were 2 out of 10. Like, there was no customization to be done on them at all. Especially cars that were pre-existing, that was really odd. Cars like the BMW M4 GTS, and especially the Porsche Cayman GT4. That's been in the game since 2015. You're telling me that all the customization was took off that for Heat? I've already made rant videos on that, but in terms of if you're going to add jumps and billboards and stuff, the rewards have got to be top notch. And they better not all be exotics neither. Like, you got to add some tuner cars in there as well, like the R33 Skyline, the Mazda RX-8, you know, the Eclipse, you know, the Supra. That would be a good idea. But I think Need for Speed are like on uneven terms with Toyota still. But if you can get Toyota, I think the Supra would be a pretty sick decision. Like, the new Supra could be the hero car. The old Supra can be a collectible car. I feel like that would be pretty cool. And also Need for Speed edition cars. But again, that's something I will come back to at a later video. Another thing that has been reoccurring in these EA racing games is stadiums. Like the one in Most Wanted 2005, for example. And hell, remember Ghost Stadium in Need for Speed 2015? Remember Ghost Stadium? Can you imagine like being able to go inside that, just like in Need for Speed Most Wanted 2005 or Burnout Paradise, you know? Because there was one in Burnout Paradise as well, as you can see by the footage. Like, that I think would have been incredible. Like, I think that was a missed opportunity in Need for Speed 2015. But I think all these like maps and locations, well, all these like special stadiums and the raceways and airfield and stuff like that, that would be amazing for the next game. Like, you can't miss out on this. Don't have too many areas that are just empty buildings. Give them some use. End of the day, we want a game that complements the style of the game. Like, if it's going to be Most Wanted 2012 style gameplay, like as in the little mini games and stuff, then the map can't be like, say, Payback or 2015. Not that 2015's got a bad map, but there's these massive gaps, and I'll show footage of those maps right now. There's massive gaps all over the 2015 map. Hell, in Need for Speed 2015, you can't even, like, there's these massive city skyscrapers that you can't get to. And I thought that was horrible. Everybody thought that was horrible. Like, they were teasing us with this big city, but all we got was the bay. Like, I don't know. If they ever return to Los Angeles, though, like, if they're doing, like, you know, if by any small chance they'll do a sequel to the 2015 reboot, then I feel like Ventura City would be a pretty darn good idea to do. I would love to see Spike, Travis, and all that again, but whatever. I digress. You cannot tease us with that stuff. But Need for Speed Heat kind of solved this problem, of course. It has the same types of views from afar of the city, but you can actually go into the city in Need for Speed Heat, and I love the city of Need for Speed Heat. There's a monorail that you can go across, and I think they should definitely add more of that. The fact that there was only one is kind of puzzling, especially if you really look at it from an outside game perspective. Like, is it just there to tour people around the city? if so, it doesn't go completely around the city. So if you're going to have another monorail, make sure it makes sense, kind of, you know. And the fact that we were able to drive along that was really cool. And there was the time trial race that you had to do along the monorail. I think they should definitely do more stuff like that built into the map, but not just something that's exclusive to the time trials. I do remember there were these obstacle courses for the Speed Cross DLC in Payback. I've not played it on the channel yet, but I've watched gameplay, and there was this one at the airfield, which was at a part of the airfield that nobody really drives to that much. I feel like everybody would have loved that Speed Cross obstacle course on that, like, for good. So for example, if you're not going to bring back off-road, but you really want to do some type of off-roading speed cross, basically, make sure your map complements that style of racing, that style of driving. You know, we need to have, if you're having speed cross in the game, the game needs to have speed cross areas. If you're going to have off-road in the game, it needs to have proper off-road areas, not these off junctions like in Payback. I mean, he did this a little bit better, but there was also these massive gaps with nothing but grass. So personally, I don't know, I'm really mixed on that, because I'm not one of the people who like off-roading too much in Need for Speed. Personally, I would rather see it gone, but if you still have it there, then you need to really improve on it. The fact that you had it in Heat was really odd to me, because it felt very tacked on in Heat. Especially, even the reward felt very tacked on. Like, who the fuck cared about Faith Jones's Raptor? Like, the fact I even remember her name is really odd. But, and I've not used it since that day. But yeah, off-roading was very, very tacked on. And I've only got off-road invites, and I said this in the intro video for 2021, Need for Speed 2021. I've been invited like a handful of times to off-road events. Like, people just don't care about the off-road events anymore. So having the off-road areas, I think, is a bit redundant now. That being said, the cars you added for off-road, like the pickup trucks and stuff, maybe keep those in. I don't know. I'd rather see them removed than I'd rather see them replaced. I wouldn't want to see them removed though. Like, I feel like keep the cars that you have in the game and just expand and expand and expand, I think. Or maybe not. Maybe I'll have a change of heart at some point and make a video about cars that should be removed. I don't know. But I think that's kind of all I gotta say on Need for Speed 2021 in terms of map and location. I think it's pretty clear. I want it in Tokyo, but that's only for the city area. Like, outside areas, like, maybe like combine. Get creative with your map. Don't just, like, it's fiction. Need for Speed is about fictional cities. Base it on multiple places, you know? Carbon's one of my favourite maps, because yes, of course it has these motorways that lead all the way around the map, but it also has these multiple cities and the industrial area that just they look so diverse, they look so different, and I feel like having that same type of diversity in the Need for Speed 2021 map would do amazingly. Like, can you imagine, like, the city being a mix of the Tokyo streets and maybe even the Palm City ones that we've got right now, like maybe like the Palm City decorations and the reflections and the lights and stuff, but with Tokyo style look to it, Tokyo style mountains, and the higher you go you get into the snow area with an observatory up top. One thing I don't want to see is a desert area, personally. I've played enough Payback, and I'm going to be honest with you guys, the desert area is quite possibly the most boring thing in that entire map, and it's most of that map. So any desert areas, no, I don't want any desert areas. That's one thing I just don't want to see in my Need for Speed games ever again, really. I think that was just a horrible idea all around. Sure, you can base your city on Las Vegas still, but everything around it cannot be desert, because no. Like, I mean, I don't want it set in Las Vegas again, but I meant, like, have certain structures, buildings, because based in Las Vegas, just like it was in Silver Rock. But yeah, once again, that's about it. That's all I gotta say. I just hope the map is good, you know? Need for Speed Heat's map, we need a map that is engaging enough to want, to make you want to learn off by heart. I know Need for Speed 2015's map off by heart. I know Need for Speed Heat's map off by heart. I don't know Payback's. I think that says something about map and the engagement of the map. You've got to have certain areas that are memorable, and especially, like, don't tack on stuff neither, because in Need for Speed Payback, of course, yes, we had the UFO, but that was it. It was just a UFO. Was there any mini games about it? Was there any special, like, jumps or anything? No, it was there. It was just there. It's cool on a first glance, but once you discover it, once you see it time and time again, it's like it's just part of the world at that point. It doesn't feel like it's memorable, you know? It's only memorable because it's just there in the middle of an area that is just so barren and empty. Like, I don't want to see areas like that again. If you're going to have off-road, make them memorable. Like this area that you see in Heat right now with that massive cliff jump. I remember doing that event for the first time in the Camaro in the off-road stream when we did that whole driving story. I think it was, what, episode 6? Episode 6, I think it was, when we finally got into the off-roading. Or was it episode... I think it was episode 5, and we did the racing one, you know, 80 Skyline last. Maybe we did off-road first and then drifting. I don't know, whatever. I remember going over this track and loving it. I loved it. Going over that cliff in the Camaro is one of my best memories in this game. So in that sense, maybe off-road does have some potential, you know? It can give you some memories, but you have to do it right. If you don't do it right, don't add it in. You didn't do it right in Payback. It felt tacked on in Heat. It shouldn't have been in neither, if I'm going to be honest. I mean, in Payback, it would have felt a bit weird if there was no off-roading, but then again, Payback shouldn't have existed in the first place. So, I mean, and that's not saying Payback's a bad game, it's just okay. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm sick of just dealing with okay games, you know? 2015 is a fluke, everybody knows that, but there's a special love for 2015, and you know the developers put their heart and soul into 2015. I mean, I'm not saying 2015 is completely a fluke, but in a lot of ways it can be a fluke, but they nailed the atmosphere of Need for Speed 2015, and you could tell that they put a lot of passion into that. Payback didn't feel like that. Need for Speed Heat did. And I know a lot of the Ghost employees went to Criterion, but it's a much bigger development team now, at least it should be. So I hope you guys at Criterion have the same exact passion as Ghost did for 2015 and Heat, and I hope to see a pretty good map. But yeah, that's all I gotta say. I think that's the third time I've said that. That's all I gotta say on the map and location. I think we'll get back to the whole map expansions type thing in the future, definitely. But for now, I'll see you guys next week for the next Need for Speed 2021 wishlist video. If you have any suggestions of what we should talk about, let me know in the comments below. Is there any certain types of areas, any types of monuments you want to see in the game? Like, maybe do you want to see a UFO again? Do you want to see just special locations that are memorable? If you've got anything in your mind, like a racetrack, a raceway. I cannot believe I haven't talked about the raceway. We asked for a raceway for years in Heat and we got it. Keep the raceway in. Like, just because it was in one game, don't remove it in the other, because the airfield in Payback is very memorable as well. That should have been in Heat as well. The rocket ship in Heat is pretty memorable as well. Albeit I think it's a bit too high, but I mean, from a distance it looks pretty sick. But anyway, like, have those types of locations in the next game. That's it. That's all I gotta say for now. Hit that like button as high as possibly can if you enjoyed this episode of Need for Speed 2021. And yeah, I'll see you guys next week for the next one. Cheers for watching. I'll see you all in the next video. Until next time, peace!